Well, in 1929, the state of Wisconsin, by a referendum, repeals its law that enforced prohibition, and quite dramatically.
By 1929, Wisconsin was passing legislation essentially legalizing low-alcohol beer. Now, it still was against federal law, so they could be enforced, but it just wasn't enforced. Soon as low-alcohol beer was legal, they started just pumping out beer.
We all need to remember that the 18th Amendment was a misguided attempt to enforce behavior and control societal standards in a way that was not what the majority of Americans wanted.
With an eye on December 5th, work is being rushed in distilleries and bottling works. Thousands are being called back to
A
work in
big
plants.
part of the reason Milwaukee was so resistant to prohibition was the cultural idea of drinking being an important part of social interaction, and I think that comes a lot with the immigrant groups that made up Milwaukee.
Supply and demand. If you have it, if the people want it, they're gonna get it.
Prohibition was just something that was unenforceable because the heart of the people was not in favor of its enforcement.
Here we have some newspapers of April 7th, 1933, when Prohibition ended. This is the Wisconsin News. So here you have showing the great industry now going to come back to the city of Milwaukee with this welcome back beer. So it's not just the beer that's affected. Also, restaurants will be experiencing better business now that they can sell beer again.
This is the newspaper photo where they're advertising how the Turners are going to be serving free beer to commemorate the end of Prohibition. And you can see her smiling. She's pretending to clean this stein because you know that she never stopped filling that with beer. What's lovely is I have those very steins.
In the 1920s, everybody was going out to drink. You had to go to the speakeasy, you had to go to the cafe to get your alcohol. After Prohibition, it becomes much more about drinking at home. People start buying their beer at the store and then bringing it home and drinking rather than going out and drinking.
The Miller family did not suffer during Prohibition. The main reason for that was the brewery had been buying lots of properties, putting what are known as tide houses all over the Midwest. And tide houses were bars that were tied to the brewery. So the brewery, they would only serve Miller beer, Miller products in their bars. Real estate prices were booming, the economy was booming, and so they sold out of these properties during Prohibition.
Historically, brewing has been central to Milwaukee's identity, even prior to Prohibition. And so Prohibition clearly had a huge impact on this. And one of the big results that comes out of Prohibition is that only the major breweries survived. But over time, that role of these major breweries starts to diminish through the city. First, Blatz closed down in 1959, and then Schlitz closed down in 1981, and Pabst closed down its operations for the most part in 1996 in Milwaukee. And so we see this part of the central identity of the city just kind of disappear for the most part. Except for beginning in the 1980s, we begin to see craft brewing take off. First of all, it becomes illegal. It wasn't legal post-Prohibition. There were all these laws after Prohibition that made it very hard to actually make beer, buy beer, sell beer. And so that really restricted the advent of new breweries. But in the 1980s, these laws were changed, and so we see the craft brewing revolution start to take off.
Craft brewing at this point in history is become an economic juggernaut. It's now, even in Wisconsin, there's thousands of people working in the industry, supporting the industry. So what is a craft beer? It's defined as the artisan style of brewing, the ingredients that we use.
I think a lot of the real passion for beer has gone into the microbreweries. The way that all the breweries can come together and cooperate is continued to make Milwaukee a beacon for the best beer in the world.
You are really a product of your environment. You know, you are a product of the ancestors that came before you. And knowing the history it's kind of, you know, that underlying heartbeat of a place. There really is no culture that ties us together. There really isn't one language, one religion, one way of being. But knowing the history and having a connection to the history of a physical place is one of the few things that actually does tie us all together.